Well, if you lose to Michigan, pretty much the other 11 don't count. We got Zach Smith here from Menace to Sports. Get on over to Menace to Sports and Zach's show each and every weekday. What time is that? Noon Eastern, right?
Noon Eastern every day.
Absolutely. Get on over there, Menace to Sports, right here on YouTube. It's great stuff with Zach, and we appreciate you being here, Zach. Well, you know what the fallout is. You know it as well as anyone. If you lose to Michigan, it doesn't matter about the other 11, and that's what we saw on Saturday. So, man, there's so much to unpack here, but let's go with the defense first because Jim Knowles was brought on to fix issues. And by the defensive metrics and by the eye test and everything put together going into this game, sure, it wasn't always pretty against Penn State or Maryland, but it was an improved defense. So how do you analyze his approach and you know, the position that he took against Michigan, selling out against the run, putting those defenders on islands out there in space?
You know, I mean, I think he did what he had to do, right? You watch Michigan's season, their offensive season, and no one could stop that run game, right? You're not just going to stop it without committing extra guys to the box. And there was really no other way to do it. And, you know, you take away it's a bad thing to say because they're part of the game, but you take away 5 plays and he shut that whole offense down. I mean, in 5 plays, they had 350 yards and 35 points, albeit that's a bad 5 plays. You can't have those 5 plays or you're not going to win the game. I think what we really saw was an offense. Ryan Day's offense kind of let Jim Knowles down. They couldn't sustain drives. They kept that defense on the field far too long. And, you know, it was a missed tackle in zero coverage on the first touchdown. That the scheme worked perfectly, right? They pressured J.J. McCarthy. He made a great throw, completed it short of the sticks, tackle the kid and get him on the ground, and it's punt team. But Cameron Brown misses a tackle, and it's a massive 69-yard touchdown. You know, and then he has two other big plays in the throw games where they got isolated on safeties. Lathan Ransom tried to jump a corner route, and it happened to be a double move. And then they put Cam Martinez in, and it was really a personnel thing. Kid played 4 snaps. He played like 4 snaps against Maryland and got cooked twice for touchdowns. He played 4 snaps against Michigan and gave up the 1 long touchdown on the post. So, I mean, I watched that film, and if you ask me which defense would you prefer, the one last year that just methodically got dominated at the line of scrimmage for 7, 8, 9 yards every single play, or the one that I watched this past Saturday, I'm taking the one in this past Saturday. I mean, they did a good job. They just didn't finish it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, if you chart every play of the game, Ohio State certainly in the first half wins 90% of the plays. But and when you get gashed, and you set up a defense that's either feast or famine, but you get gashed and you make the tackle after an 18-yard gain, well, it's not the end of the world. You keep playing and you got to keep. But when it goes for 75 and 85, that's just obviously that turns it all around. So I kind of thought, even though they won the first half and they got gashed twice, the Marvin Harrison play to the corner kind of brought it back to, okay, you don't feel good losing 17-13 when you've dominated the game, but you give up the 2 big plays, but you grab the lead back, you go to the locker room, and, you know, where did you stand at that point? Because the pessimists stand on the side of, well, we blew a bunch of chances. You can't do that. That's going to come back to haunt us. But the optimists say, well, we got control of this game. We're going to break through in the second half.
Well, you really felt that way. You felt that way the whole first half, even early in the second half, that Ohio State was controlling the game. I mean, because they were. The offense was sputtering a little bit, and the defense obviously had those big plays that they gave up, but you felt like Ohio State was playing better every down. And so I went into halftime saying, all right, if they can clean some stuff up on offense. C.J. Stroud was off. He missed a bunch of reads, a bunch of throws, a bunch of situations, honestly, where all year, you know, he throws a 50-50 ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. He threw 1 in this game, and it was a touchdown. And, I mean, it was confusing kind of where CJ was at and how he was playing. But I think at halftime, as an Ohio State fan, you had to feel decent because they were controlling the game. They kind of were controlling both sides of the ball. Michigan had hit their big plays, and you felt like Ryan Day could level up. But what was lost in the whole thing was what Jesse Minter has done all year. I mean, he has went in at halftime, and that defense at Michigan has shut down the opposing offense. I think the average is 2.8 points in the second half over the last 7 games. It's been outstanding. And he did it again on Saturday. He shut down Ryan Day's offense in the second half.
So when you approach a defense that good, or really any defense, because they're obviously going to take something away and they're going to leave themselves exposed otherwise, how much do you stay with your identity and what you do versus what the defense is giving you? Because you mentioned the Harrison play, and then also we had Ibuka got loose down the seam to make it 31-23 because they couldn't cash it in for a touchdown. But when they took shots, and I think Stroud missed Marvin down the other left sideline early in the game. But besides that, they didn't take shots. And I get it because Michigan's providing safety help. But what do you balance out doing what you do versus what the defense is showing you?
Yeah, I mean, there comes a point where you need to just take what the defense gives you per se. And I think they tried to do that. I think CJ honestly made a bunch of poor decisions, especially in the RPO game. Some of the wideouts haven't blocked well at Ohio State all year. But some of the RPO stuff they were doing, the bubble screens, which Emeka, actually the one bubble screen, Emeka took it for like 18 yards, but it was horribly blocked, and the defenders kind of ran into each other. It was kind of fortunate. But I didn't see CJ taking what the defense gave even. I mean, there was one play in particular where there's some concept going over on to the right, and it was clear there was confusion. Cade Stover's like looking to block while CJ's dropping back to pass. And, in the disarray, great players can make plays. Marvin Harrison Jr. runs a backside dig wide open over the middle of the field. CJ looks right at him, but for whatever reason decides not to pull the trigger. It was a lot of that over and over where you're watching it going, what is going on right now? Throw it. Throw it to that kid. And Michigan certainly wasn't going to let Ohio State beat them deep, but they also weren't afraid to come up and play press man.
Good. Zach Smith here breaking down the Buckeyes in Michigan and what happened at the shoe. You can catch Zach every day, Monday through Friday, right here on YouTube. Menace to Sports. Get on over there. Menace to Sports right here on YouTube. So if you really break down the process of building a college football program, you acquire the talent, you got to develop the talent as individual players and as units. Then you prepare for games, you build a scheme, you would make adjustments at halftime, all those things. Then obviously there's some kind of magical formula of culture's the big word that's thrown around. How much are the guys bought in? So the talent, either Ohio State's still significantly more talented, and I don't mean that they're playing Rutgers, but the recruiting rankings tell us that they're better, or maybe based on what you saw, it's extremely comparable. So let's start there. What do you think about the talent difference between the two teams?
I really think it's pretty equated outside of offensive skill. And I mean, Michigan's backfield is ridiculous. I mean, Donovan, and what's funny is going into this game, I think Blake Corum is a fantastic running back, but I told Ohio State fans when they said he was out and Donovan Edwards was going to play, I said, watch out now. This kid might be better. And if he's not better than Blake Corum, he's certainly more of a home run threat. We all witnessed that twice in the fourth quarter. But I think it really just comes down to offensive skill. I mean, they don't have a Marvin Harrison Jr., right? I think that they have Ronnie Bell is a good player. I don't think he's going to be an NFL starter for 8 years like Marvin Harrison Jr. will be. So there's a slight difference. But you watch that offensive line. Michigan's offensive line is the best offensive line in football. Those 3 or 4 D tackles they play, Mozzie Smith and 55 and 94, outstanding. Mike Morris, the defensive end, outstanding. I mean, it's honestly, that's the one position. They don't have Marvin Harrison Jr. That's about it. And CJ Stroud's much better throwing the football than JJ McCarthy. But other than that, that's a pretty evenly matched team.
Yeah, and this Virginia transfer at center.
Oh my gosh!
For as good as they were along the offensive line last year, Olawatimi's made them so much better. He's phenomenal. So then we talk about developing talent, and we talk about preparing for games. What's your evaluation of Ryan Day and staff in regards to that?
Well, I mean, it all comes down to one thing: did you win or lose? And he's 2 in a row. Jim Harbaugh's out prepared Ryan Day, and it's wild because last year was a much different story. I mean, the offense had a lot of success against Michigan last year in 2021, and the defense just got brutalized. So he brings in Jim Knowles, pays him $2 million. Going to fix the defense. I believe he did. I mean, the defensive game was very different from last year, but now the offense struggles. And so I don't think it was a lack of preparation. I just think they're in a situation where their quarterback didn't play well. And some of the receivers maybe couldn't get open frequently. And didn't block well on the perimeter. And when you do that, you can shut an offense down. You make them one-dimensional like that. I mean, they averaged 5 yards a carry. It's not like they couldn't run the ball. They just didn't have home runs, and they didn't have consistent execution, right? Because you can run for 5 yards, then a false start. And the other thing that killed them was penalties. I mean, you have false starts and the personal foul penalty for G. Scott, 1st and 35 is just nuts. It was just a poorly executed plan. And ultimately, that does fall on coaching. No matter how you cut it, that is coaching and preparation.
Now, fortunately, you bring up the G. Scott play. Fortunately, we found out since then that the Ryan Day decision not to go for it was simply a fake punt that wasn't executed, because everybody's pulling their hair out thinking you just drove the ball 32 yards to get to like a 4th and 4. What are you doing? You trust your quarterback and receivers to convert a 4th down. I would have rather seen just the straight out, let's go for it on 4th down versus the fake punt. But at least now we know they screwed that up.
Yeah. Well, it was wild, the whole turn of events. CJ Stroud's waving the punt team off. Ryan's telling CJ to come off, obviously because he wanted to fake a punt. But what gets lost there is it's 4th and 4 and they have a false start penalty. And that's what killed him. I don't know if that's what confused the long snapper, if he because of the false start forgot that it was a fake. Like, I don't know exactly how that happens, that you're running a fake punt and the long snapper forgets it's a fake. I've honestly never heard of it. I think 13 years in college football, I ran special teams for almost all 13. I've never heard of a long snapper saying, oh, it was a fake. Oh, I forgot. I've never heard of that. But it's couldn't be more clear. I mean, they didn't even cover the punt. Everyone's turning around looking at the punter. Like, why does he have the ball? What's going on? So it was wild, a wild play. And Ohio State's on their backup long snapper. Their starting long snapper got hurt like 4 weeks ago. So it's an unfortunate play, and it kind of sums up the whole day, to be honest with you.
No doubt about that. This college football playoff ranking is going to come out on Tuesday, and I got to think Ohio State's got to be number 5. If they drop behind Alabama, that's, you got to evaluate the whole season. So anyway, 2 losses versus 1. I think it all adds up to Ohio State being at 5. USC wins, they're in. They lose, they're out. TCU is more of a wild card in regards to how they're going to be perceived if they win. I think they should be in. They've earned it, undefeated season. But a lot of people say, hey, they don't play at the same level. I guess we can only focus on Ohio State here in regards to if they sneak in. There's only a guess as to what the psyche is. Is it, hey, we got another chance, man? This is going to breathe life into the program, or it's kind of like we're a little unsure of whether we can pull anything off here.
No, I think they just from everything I've heard. I mean, Ohio State's back to business. They were in the facility on Sunday, back to work, because in their mind they're going to make the playoffs, and they're still making a run at this thing. And I think the mentality at Ohio State is actually really good. Considering what we just watched, it's actually, higher morale than I would have anticipated. And if they do sneak in, I think it'll be interesting, because I talked about it when Tennessee played Georgia at Georgia. Your quarterback's going to have to play his best game, Heisman caliber type of game, to beat this Georgia defense. And Hendon Hooker did not. He was off in that game. And so Tennessee ran out of the stadium. I think the same will be true when Ohio State plays Georgia. I think this defense matches up really well against Georgia. Their offense, Stetson Bennett, what he does. But the reality is going to be, if CJ Stroud doesn't play his best, they stand no chance at beating Georgia, Michigan, TCU, or USC, any of those teams.
Zach, do you have much thought on TCU? Have you seen them play much? Obviously, they're hanging by a wire in most of these games, but to their credit, they pull them out.
Yeah, they do. They do. They're a team that finds a way to win. You go from the Texas game to the first Kansas State matchup, now the rematch coming down the wire here. And it's like one game, their offense just looks ridiculously explosive and dominant, and the defense struggles. And then the next game, the defense just shuts down Quinn Ewers and the Texas offense. And, the offense struggles a little bit. So they're a team that's kind of trying to figure out how to win at a consistent clip. And at this level, I mean, TCU's not been a nationally relevant team very often, and they certainly have never had an undefeated season where they're looking a playoff berth in the face. So I think they're interesting because they have some explosive players. They have a good defense that has went through some struggles, but at times they look great. And I've told Ohio State fans all along, with the pass defense being the weakness for Ohio State, I don't think TCU or USC is an advantageous matchup for Ohio State. I think Georgia's actually a better matchup for Ohio State than either of those teams.
So yeah, let's look at USC, and a lot of people got a look at Caleb Williams for the first time against Notre Dame. I've seen him play a bunch of times, but there were comparisons made during the broadcast of Pat Mahomes, and I can get it from the standpoint of arm angles and the standpoint of just the way he backs up in the pocket and will kind of get himself out of the pocket. And sometimes he'll decide, I'm just backing straight up, or sometimes he'll obviously roll right. And he just did things that have to demoralize a defense that has worked so hard to pin him back there and chase him around. And then he completes an 18-yard pass downfield. So, we came into the season thinking Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are the best quarterbacks in America. Most people did. They certainly have had really good seasons. But this Caleb Williams, he's pretty special, isn't he?
He's a gamer. He's a baller. I mean, he's reminds me a little bit of Kyler Murray. Maybe not as flamboyant back there, but he's a great athlete that makes plays. Like you said, it's the Pat Mahomes comparison, although they aren't comparable players yet, but it's kind of that wild card factor, right? Like you said, sometimes he's going to take a traditional drop. Sometimes he's just going to kind of sit there. Sometimes he's going to backpedal. He might take off and run and keep his eyes downfield. He has so many different ways to impact the game, and he's fun to watch. He's entertaining, and he is a dynamic player. And I think with the skill set they've built around him through the transfer portal, Lincoln's brought in some players, obviously Jordan Addison being the keynote from winning the Blitnikoff last year, but he's got some athletes around him. He's a baller. He's a gamer, and he's must-see TV.
So, Zach, looking at Caleb Williams and what he's able to do, looking at Bryce Young, and certainly CJ Stroud is phenomenal. When he's on his game, he can throw it better than anyone in the game. But there is a thought there that if you can have it all and you're Ohio State and you can pretty much have it all, why would you not in the future try to get the next Justin Fields when they present just another threat to the defense that CJ Stroud just either refuses or doesn't have in him? I think it's a combination there that recruiting quarterbacks in the future, you go for more of a guy that's going to be a more physical runner and gifted runner.
I think it's even more than that. I mean, CJ's athletic enough to do it. I think it truly is more about a square-jawed, tough-ass quarterback. You know what I mean? Like a guy that you listen to Justin Fields talk in interviews, and this is the intangible side of quarterback play that's so much more important than just arm talent or athletic ability. You listen to Justin Fields talk in an interview, you feel like that's a real dude. JT Barrett the same way, right? Dwayne Haskins to an extent the same way. And CJ Stroud, you feel like, man, like get some, like, grind your teeth a little bit, like get a little angry. Like you don't see a lot of emotion out of him. You don't see, he's very cerebral, very calculated, very calm. And that's his way of playing quarterback, and something that is a part of the evaluation process. As good as CJ Stroud has been, I don't know that he's played well in a single big game against a good opponent.
Yeah, I'm not trying to I'm the last one to play psychologist, but at the same time, I'm right there with you on that. Because again, we've seen players throughout the ages, be really good players and do it. But, if you're playing left guard and you're a natural leader, well, you're going to emerge as a leader in the locker room. But if you're a quarterback, you have to be a leader. Like
have to.
There's no getting out of that. You have to be a leader. And to just see JJ McCarthy, for example, and just have kind of this way about him, just this swag, that people feed off, his teammates feed off, and CJ kind of sends to mope around and look at the ground and not really get in the face of his teammates to get him either, I'm going to kick your ass because you better run that route right, or, let's pick it up. We're okay. None of that. Either way, you just don't see any of that out of him.
No, you don't. And it's the greatest, I guess, example of it was Saturday, because JJ McCarthy, obviously he deserves all the credit in the world. I mean, to get that win, to do what he was able to do was outstanding. But I mean, he was 3 for 10 on throws over 10 yards. It wasn't like he was lighting the world on fire with his arm or dicing up Ohio State's defense. But to your point, he had the fire, the passion, like the team takes on the personality of your quarterback. It always has been true, always will be true. And that team kind of rallied around JJ and his swagger and his confidence. Even if he only completed 3 passes over 10 yards, that didn't matter, because they took on his persona and they follow their quarterback into battle, right? Where CJ Stroud, it felt like, come off the sideline. It's like, it's all right, man. We'll be good. We'll get him next time. Like, win one for the Gipper. Like, come on, man. Like, let's get a little passion and energy out of you.
Get Zach Smith breaking down Ohio State, Michigan, and the rest of the nation here. And are you still in the boat that Georgia's the best team, or would you put Michigan right there with them?
I mean, I think Georgia's the most complete team. Stetson Bennett, both phenomenal defenses. I mean, I think those are by far the top two defenses in the country. They're going to cause problems for anyone, including each other. But the difference maker is Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett is like J.J. McCarthy, but a far more polished, more veteran, kind of more experienced version, right? He's a little better thrower. He's a little bit more of a gamer because of that experience. So I give Georgia the slight edge because I would take Stetson Bennett over J.J. McCarthy today. But I think that's going to be an outstanding game if those two teams end up matching up at the end.
You worked with Luke Fickell. There was thoughts that he's not going to take any job unless it's Ohio State or maybe Notre Dame because he's a Midwestern guy. However you want to define the Midwest, Wisconsin, Cincinnati, they're both termed the Midwest, but they're like 1,000 miles away. Right. But obviously the money meant something, and being in the Big Ten as a head coach.
Yeah, and I think the money mattered, right? Obviously, whatever, I didn't read what it was, $7.6 million or something. Big jump in salary. I don't think Luke makes decisions because of that. I think that whatever Wisconsin told him, and when Luke Fickell took that job, here's what it told me. Wisconsin put stuff on the table for Luke to make him believe that they can have high success when it comes to staff pool, how much money he can pay his assistants, the NIL structure, the amount of money they're going to spend on recruiting, because this is a school that spends $400,000 a year in a recruiting budget when Ohio State's spending like $2 million, right? So I think they had to present him a plan saying, this is how we're going to kind of give you all the tools you need to be a Big Ten championship caliber team. Because he would not have taken that job if they didn't do that. Whether he got a couple more $1 million or not, it's not the money for him. That's why I always felt like Penn State was that one that might get him. It seems like Wisconsin stepped their game up and wanted to, I guess, enter the chat, right? Sit at the table with the big boys. And so they had to go get Luke and show him that they're going to do what it takes. I'm excited for him. I'm with you. I did not think it was going to happen. No chance was he going to leave Cincinnati and move his family out of the state of Ohio to go to just a B tier program like Wisconsin, but he did it. So it just shows me that they're trying to level up at Wisconsin.
Graham Mertz is at 5-star, who definitely hasn't gotten it done. Now we see Cade McNamara is going to enter the transfer portal. He's not a great quarterback, but he's accomplished things. Is he a good fit to like a Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa?
Absolutely. I mean, he's good enough, right? He's not a guy that's going to go win you a national championship or win you a bunch of big games, but he's a guy that is smart with the football. He can make some throws. He's obviously has a ton of experience, so it's not like you're throwing some rookie out on the field. I think he's a great kind of stopgap until you can find, hopefully, your franchise quarterback if you're a Wisconsin or any of the schools you mentioned. Really, if you're Matt Rule at Nebraska is another great one. Just you got to find a guy that is not going to. He's not going to lose you games. He might not win you the Ohio State game, but he's not going to lose you the freaking Northwestern game.
Absolutely. And one last shot here with the Big Ten championship coming up. Some people forget that that's actually going to be played here Saturday night. I just mentioned Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin. I'll throw Illinois in there. They're almost the same team. They rely on defense. They run the football. They're, I'll be kind, limited in the passing game. I would say Iowa's defense is at another level because they actually take the ball away from people and score. But the other three defenses are pretty much in the same league. They're top 15 to 25 defenses in the country. Purdue's like a wild card. Like they play different than everybody else in that division. And because of it, they look better than everyone on certain weeks. But then other weeks, they look awful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just Jeff Brom and his system, right? It's not similar to Mike Leach, but similar kind of mode of thinking, right? Where you watch Mike Leach's team and these offensive gurus that are pass happy. Shoot, I mean, we could probably throw Ryan Day in there too. They'll come out and look like world beaters one week, and then the next week they'll come out and the timing's off in the throw game. I mean, I heard it was raining when Ohio State played Northwestern. Like, there's all these different excuses that throw these pass happy guys off, and all of a sudden they don't look the same. And not only on offense, but defensively. I think it has something to do with that toughness you develop with inside drill and some of the stuff that, Wisconsin and Illinois certainly are running the hell out of the football on each other in practice. So a team like Purdue, a team like Mississippi State, it's almost like they're hit or miss. They might come out on Saturday and light the world on fire and look outstanding, but they also might get rolled by 50.
Zach Smith, Menace to Sports, every Monday through Friday right here on YouTube at noon. Get there and check out Zach's work right there. Zach, we appreciate you stopping by as always, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.